you wrote your book? Are you in the process of writing your book?
Yeah, so I've written the autobiography. It's in kind of the editing stage right now, and
Yeah.
also kind of going through it's really difficult when you're writing an autobiography. You kind of have to like either tell the person's name or like talk to them and like get
Right,
approval,
right, right,
or you just kind of have to go for it and hope you don't get sued.
right.
Um, so it's just in the final editing stages of before it actually comes out. So
What motivated you to write the book? Was it a healing thing? Was it?
yeah, the past 8 years out of the industry, I went to college, got my bachelor's, my master's, got into a doctoral program, got some graduate certifications, and just had a lot of life between starting the adult industry at 18 and then getting out and not being on social media, and raising my kids for 8 years and kind of doing academia and corporate life. So I wanted to kind of share my upbringing, how that transpired into me becoming an adult film star at 18, how that launched me into, pretty extreme famedom with becoming a Brazzers contract star, and then how I became a global innovation fellow for the US State Department, and why I'm choosing to make a comeback now when I actually just quit a six-figure corporate America job for it. So
Plenty of questions there, but um, you mentioned it, if I remember correctly, when you blew up, and yes, you blew up, you didn't seem surprised by it. That you're always quiet and chill, or is that just me?
no, I think it from the time I was a little girl, like I kind of always wanted to sing and dance and act and
Right.
perform. It was just something that was really natural for me. It's something that actually it's really natural for my children as well, which is really fascinating, to see that DNA transpire and like how
Right.
that's working out for them. My daughter actually just got a full ride scholarship for vocal performance and is starting college in a few weeks. So I don't think it was something that ever shocked me personally. But I never did any of this for fame. And I think not being on social media the past 8 years has proved that. It's always been about the creative art for me, like the
Right.
project and just the acting itself.
Right.
So yeah, I would say I'm a method actress, and I just genuinely enjoy that as a job.
Getting back to the book, or actually two things. You answered most of it already, but when big porn stars quit the adult industry, like where do they go? Like, how long does it take you to transition back into being a civilian and get away from all this? Did you leave Los Angeles? Did all that happen?
I did, yeah. So I left LA in about summer of 2015 and came back to Arizona. And then I started college at Arizona State University. And then I actually got a full scholarship to go do a partnership program up in Silicon Valley. So I moved up with my three kids alone to San Mateo, Foster City, California. And I did the Draper University Entrepreneurship Program and graduated from that. And then I moved back from that program to Arizona and finished up my bachelor's in liberal studies and was working. I worked normal civilian jobs even. I worked at Intel. So, like, my undergraduate internship was at Intel, on the Smart Cities engineering team. So, I don't think anyone would have ever imagined that for me, even myself. I didn't truly know what I was capable of academically. I was always a gifted child, pulled out in gifted even, but I just didn't realize, because the adult industry kind of almost gives you, like, people kind of tell you that your worth is based on your body and not your brain. And so for a while I had become accustomed to that. So when all of a sudden I was winning awards and accolades in academia, I was like, oh wow, I can do what I did in adult in academia too. Like, it almost gave me like a rush and a high. So I continued down that path. So after I graduated with my bachelor's, I was like, you know what? I'm going to go on and get my master's now. And then I did that and I got a 4.0. And I actually got published as a solo author, which was extremely unheard of as a master's student. And that was for, I did prioritizing inclusion in smart cities. So it actually had to do with, the engineering program and like what I was working on at the time with my thesis. And then from there, I was like, I want to go to law school. So I applied and I got in. The only school I applied to, I got in right away, actually. And so I just did that this past year. And then from there, I got my corporate job making six figures. I had multiple job offers. I took one that I thought I would be at for 20 years, and I did it. And I realized that I was not happy. I wasn't fulfilled. It wasn't my true soul purpose. And I was working, doing for somebody else, doing something that I wasn't. And, I was having anxiety every day. And so I quit my job, making really good money with good health insurance, on the gamble that my fans would still have my back and that I would be able to pursue creative pursuits beyond adult and into mainstream, knowing now that my worth was never determined by the degrees or by my socioeconomic status or by where I came from. Like, my value has always come from within, but it took getting to this point and earning all of those degrees and accolades for me to see that even just as an adult film star, I was just as worthy of, and it's as intelligent. I just didn't have the piece of paper and I hadn't gone through the process. So for any other adult film stars out there watching, I mean, I think people think, oh, the sky's the limit, but I always was one of those people that was like, the sky is just kind of a place for me to like be inspired by, and it's just a starting limit for me. So
Getting back to your book, you decide to
Yep.
write the book. Do you write it in chronological order? Do you do like index cards where you put them on the wall and do the whole thing?
So I actually had somebody that is a professional kind of in that literary world. I actually took literary publishing at Arizona State University, with, in graduate school. And so I have a professor that I've been able, to bounce stuff off of as well. But I did have a professional that was kind of feeding me questions to help me pull out some of the dark and deep stuff. And then something fascinating that I've done while writing the book, which I've done for 17 years, but I started using psychedelics on my 18th birthday. And over the past 7, 8 years in academia, I started using it for mental health, for research, getting into that side of things. And so I've done ketamine treatments and psilocybin and really used that as kind of a catalyst and tool while writing the book. So it was almost like therapy while writing my autobiography. So I'm really excited for people to read about because I wanted it to also have a real authentic vibe. I didn't want it to be all negative or all positive. I wanted the whole complex story to be told. And there's already mainstream producers that have hit me up, like, we're interested in potentially purchasing your story and turning it into a feature film. And I had pitched it as a series, and they were like, this is definitely a feature film. Like, this is a great story. So yeah, it's in chronological order. It starts with, my childhood and goes into how I got into adults and then how I got out and kind of everything that happened from then on. Me going to China as a global innovation fellow for the whole US State Department. I was like one of 50 chosen. It was not something I ever expected in my life to happen. And it was, to me, it's still one of the most fascinating things that I've accomplished. And then it goes into, my kids and also the miscarriages, the losses. My son, who's 16 months old, had a twin sister that passed away in utero, and I had to carry both of them to term in order to deliver. So it goes into kind of the complexity of my life and also my love life personally, in and out of the industry and how the industry affected that and how it affected my psyche.
Were there any stories, I think you just touched on it, but any other specific things that happened or stories that were like probably really personal, but you felt they were important to tell in the book?
Yeah, there was a woman in my life that was a gifted honors high school kind of like mentor or guidance counselor to me at around the age of like 14, 15 years old. And she was the very first person that I brought my daughter to meet when I had her. I was 16 and pregnant. She helped me get into an accelerated high school and graduate. And she reached out to me in my early to mid 20s when I lived in LA, and she was a principal in Los Angeles. And she called me when I was in Vegas one day. And, most adult film store or most adult film stars like escort. And I was doing that at the time. And she called me and she said, I'm okay with you being an actress. I'm okay with everything that you're doing, but I'm not okay with you escorting. You're too good for that. You're too smart. You're capable of anything. The one thing that no one can ever take away from you is your education. And it changed my life that day. That was the day I stopped. And it's something I've never shared with anyone. It's in the book. I don't even think she personally knows, and probably will read it for the first time in the book, but that was a huge turning point in me getting out and really going to school and me wanting to realize my potential and seeing what could I do outside of the industry.
And you mentioned earlier that there were some people you either wanted to use their names, or maybe for legal reasons you didn't. Was that because you wanted to tell your side of what happened in your life versus they obviously are going to disagree with you? Or is that
No, I
something
mean,
negative?
everything that I have said in the book is my side and my truth. But I'm also intelligent enough to understand that other people's perception of what there's like both sides, and then there's what really happened. And I think everybody's opinion is valid and their perception and their identity and what happened is valid, but I still want to be able to tell my truth and my part of the story. But I also, it would be defaming some of their character, even though it's the truth. It could harm their reputation, and I don't want to do that. And I'm not someone that kisses and tells in that sense. Like, I'm not someone that will ever throw anybody under the bus, even though I do have those high profile stories. So it was a huge factor of learning how to balance, what can I say and like where is that boundary for me? And I don't ever want a single person on earth to think this could come out in a book, like how Taylor Swift will write a song. Like, this is a different industry. This is a different world. Like, these are people's professional lives, families' lives. They have children too. And just because they made a mistake then doesn't mean maybe they haven't learned from it now. So I'm giving a lot of people that opportunity to apologize or to say yes or no to, the book. And like, would you like me to use your name? Would you like me to just give a fake name? How should we go about this? Because this is a valid part of my story that I'd like to share. So I've been really open and honest with a lot of the people. And it's also been healing in a lot of ways, because there was some pretty shitty things that happened to me that people have actually really apologized for, because they didn't want their name slandered in the book, even though it was the truth. So
when you left to all the jobs you just mentioned, was there ever any hassle because you were an adult performer before that?
I mean, there are some people that knew that brought it up to me, mostly privately, like off to the side at an event or in a text message. Obviously, it comes with the territory. I expected it. It's not something that bothers me. The way I look at it is, unless they're making it a problem, it's not going to become one. The only issue that I've had with the industry and getting out was people contacting my daughter on social media underage. That was a big issue for me, because I'm a big proponent of teaching the difference between sex, love, and porn, and age appropriateness. So for me, that was crossing a boundary. But at work, when they're consenting adults, if we're not on the clock, if we're at an after event or they're texting me something, I mean, that's their prerogative. We're consenting adults, and it's up to me how I want to respond. So
did being a mom of 4 children give you a strong backbone and maybe help you kind of ignore all that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, because they're all different ages, and I was a young mom, I was a teen mom. So for me, I've always kind of I felt like I was always in survival mode, and it was always, I'll do whatever I have to do for my children so that they never have to want for anything. And I feel like I succeeded at that. My oldest has a full scholarship for vocal performance. My son was just president of his elementary school and just graduated elementary school and was valedictorian. Then my daughter Charlotte's one of the best Roblox gamers, and like edits and does CapCut and is just super creative. And my 16-month-old is just a joy. So they give me meaning and purpose and a drive and a motivation to constantly pursue, success in whatever form that looks like for me at the time.
When you originally left the business, did something happen that caused you to say, I'm done? Or did you just feel you'd had enough of it and you'd gone as far as you could go?
There were multiple, I think there's multiple layers to that. I did sort of feel like I hit a peak. I became a Brazzers contract star, and at the time, like, OnlyFans wasn't even really a thing yet at all. That was sort of like the peak of where you go. And for me, once I hit a peak of anything, like, I want to start something new. That's just the way I have a growth mindset. That's the way my mind works. I also fell in love with someone that I didn't plan on falling in love with. And that had a profound effect on me. And then also I had found a lump in my left breast, and that had a huge effect on me as well. So there were multiple layers as to why I got out when I did. And I know the universe works in mysterious ways. So timing wise, it happened exactly the way it was supposed to happen. But yeah, I think I definitely did feel like I hit a peak. And so coming back, obviously it's like, where do you start, right? That's been the big question of when you've already been at the top, when you're coming back, how do you entice and keep those fans that already are in love with you, and then get everyone else that you want to become a fan? Because I want to do so much more than I've done before, and more than just adult. I do want to do mainstream television and film. And so I am taking Lee Strasberg intensive courses this year, and trying to push the boundaries of what Tracy Lords did, and really, really be able to do the crossover this year.
Well, everything has changed technology to a point where I don't think that'll be a problem for you. But coming back, are you strictly in terms of adult? Are you just doing OnlyFans, or are you going to be actually working for Brazzers and companies and stuff like that?
So I'm in talk with Brazzers. It's just talks right now. I haven't made any commitments to anything. Basically, I'm an actress, and I'm also an extremely intelligent one. So it's strictly financial at this point. Whoever
Right.
gives me the best offer and I feel like is going to portray me and my reputation in the best light is who I'm going to take a contract with. So I won't just be shooting gonzo scenes for anybody. I own a house. I have everything I could ever need already. So this isn't about immediate funds. I don't need money.
Right.
This is about a long-term play, and me being able to choose my creative projects, and kind of how Taylor Swift re-recorded all of her albums.
Right.
Like, I felt like I was really young and dumb, and I just took the money, back then, and I wasn't really as intelligent as I am now with what I'm doing creatively, and I want to own all of my own IP. So I'm going back and kind of re-recording that so that I
Right.
can own my own
So,
projects, essentially.
so then are you doing OnlyFans? Do you have an OnlyFans account?
I do, yeah. It's onlyfans.com/the Madison Scott, and I've only had it live for 2 days, and it's been going haywire. So it's been amazing. I've had nobody be negative on, because I just started Instagram, Twitter, and OnlyFans this week. And I've had not one negative comment, not one troll. I mean, it has been so fabulous. Everybody's been so amazing. I think there's a lot of people that are shocked because I'm posting my children, like, I'm posting my whole life. Like, I'm just being really authentic, and it's been going really well so far.
You smile and your face lights up like you're genuinely surprised. Why would you be surprised?
Yeah, because I mean, for 8 years, I got off of social media, and you hear all these stories about trolls
Right.
and just, like, negative people. So I had just had no idea what to expect. Like, I wasn't on social media. I legitimately just focused on my kids and school and my academic pursuits and my research and my jobs. And that was my whole world. So I didn't even really stalk social media that much. I actually have not slept with a guy since 2015, and it's 2023, so 8 years I haven't slept with a guy. So it's pretty fascinating to make this decision, because I made it very deliberately, knowing that this could propel me into what my real soul purpose is, and actually get me in front of the producers and directors and literary agents that can finally see, like, what I'm truly capable of.
But Do you think your fans have wanted new material from you for 8 years? Or do you think you built that? Did you do something unique?
I didn't know what they would want coming back. So far, the messages, a lot of people have said they want new scenes with Johnny Sins and Kieran Lee. Those are the two guys, which makes sense. Kieran and I have already been talking on social media and have sent pictures back. You know, I love his wife and he's got a great family. I've got a great kid. Like, it's an easy professional pairing. It makes total sense. So that's definitely a potential. Johnny and I worked together. We both, I mean, honestly, we all were veterans. So we've all worked together. We're all professionals. So yeah, I know what everybody's wanting. What I'm willing to deliver is pretty much going to depend on studio finances, contracts, like negotiations at that point. So yeah. And then on my OnlyFans, I'm kind of doing a little bit of lifestyle, a little bit of fitness, solo girl collab. And then in terms of boy girl, it's really going to be working with a lot of the veterans that I know and trust and that are professional. In terms of new people, it'll be vetted based on, you know, my conversations with others in the industry that have had positive experiences with them. So.
And will you be maybe only doing some stuff for your OnlyFans that you won't do for companies?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, of course, that's just the smart business play, is to have exclusive content for yourself. So yeah, I mean, in terms of like if Brazzers offered me a contract, it's all going to come down to negotiation and what we're willing to do and, you know, what money talks. So we'll see what ends up happening. They were the first one that got my anal scene. So they were lucky in that sense. I've been an anal girl personally in my personal life, so it's not like I'm doing something I don't want to do. I just am an actress and I think of this as a job. And when I show up to set, I'm professional and on time, and I expect the same from the people that I work with. So it's really just going to come down to the studio offers and, you know, what makes the most sense going forward. But yes, absolutely. OnlyFans is getting exclusive content, especially in the behind the scenes stuff and just, you know, the custom stuff that they want to see and that they message in. And some people are really creative, and it's been really fun to just talk with people and get to know what they've been up to the past few years. Because a lot of them I talked to often in the past, because I've always just been a pretty open book, and it's really cool. Like Shauna Lene, who's now I think Shauna Scott or Shauna Shows on a lot of it. We actually lived together back in the day and worked together a lot, and we still support each other. So it's been really nice to reconnect with her, and we plan on doing some social media collaborations soon. So things are really, it's just been a lot of fun in just a matter of a week. So many people have reached out and are like, let's do this, let's do that. And it's just fun. It's so much more fun than working a corporate, boring day job. Yeah, I've got a ton of scenes that I've saved that I did a lot of trade with, but like some of it, like with Jessica James, she was actually one of my best friends, like personally in the industry. So when she passed away a few years ago, that hit me really, really hard, because I have a lot of content of her and I that I have not released, that I don't know if I will ever release. Because she passed away, but she was like, with a lot of other people in the industry, I felt like she was kind of like the party friend. And with me, she would come over, hang out with my kids, watch movies. She was there when I needed a shoulder to cry on. So it was a really big personal loss when she passed a few years ago. Hold our personal pictures and our AVN pictures we took together and just all the scenes we shot together. She was just always so kind and nice. And I remember one time we were shooting a scene and I was like, slap me across the face. And she was like, stop the scene. She was like, I'm never going to hit you. I love you. And we just had such a beautiful friendship. And it's rare that you find, you know, real friendships like that in this industry. And that was a big blow for me a few years ago. When I heard that in the news, I was like, oh man, like my heart just broke.
Yeah, when you left, before coming back, had you left with a good impression of the industry, or were you just?
It's both. There's been, I think, like any job in the world, there's good days and there's bad days, and there's good people and there's bad people. Some days on set were absolutely just freaking phenomenal. Every day that I shot for Penthouse or I shot for Kelly Holland, I actually had a really great day on set. I shot for, Holly Randall, Lisa Boyle, like they're photographers that really take their craft seriously. And then I've shot, for some of the Bang Bros Reality Kings back in the day when I was really young, and they were just kind of treating girls like objects. And not to say that they're not great companies now or they haven't evolved, because I don't know. So it would be wrong of me to say that, I don't have an opinion as of right now. But back then I was young and I was kind of treated like an object. So knowing the difference now, there were good and bad days, but my overall take on the industry is still that it had a profound effect on my life and ultimately has led me to here, which is where I'm meant to be. So I always try to take the positive out of every situation. And even though there were some bad days, like I had some amazing days working for Kink, and then I had some days that were really, really hard working for Kink.
Right.
And I think a lot of people go polarity on it, right? Very black and white. Either this industry is really horrible or this industry is really great. But the truth is, everything is what you make of it. And for me, it's allowed me to have freedom with my time. It allowed me to really provide a great life for my children. And even on the darkest days when I did, fall to the ground in the shower and cry, I was able to pick myself up again the next day and realize that that was just a shitty person or a shitty day, and tomorrow's a new day and I can make that one better. So that's how I feel we should all think about it. Is everything is a job, and we all have a chance to choose what we're doing and how we're doing it. And if you're on set and you don't feel comfortable doing something, I do think more girls should start speaking up and changing, what needs to be changed.
A short version of breast cancer when that happens.
Yeah, absolutely. So I had a lumpectomy in the fall of 2016, and I did chemotherapy, tamoxifen, and then went and did my program in Silicon Valley, came back to Arizona. I had a bad mammogram in December of 2018. So I had a nipple-sparing bilateral mastectomy in April of 2019. And I had about a dozen surgeries after that, spaced about 6 weeks apart. They were really hard on me mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. But the whole time that I was going through those surgeries, I stayed going to school. I stayed working. I went right back to Intel 3 weeks after my nipple-sparing bilateral mastectomy. So it was tough. I'm not going to lie. It is a huge part of the book. Tamoxifen chemo fried kind of my eggs, which is why I did IVF. So I did 2 egg retrievals. And out of that, I think we had gathered like 40 something eggs and had them tested, and only, I think, a total of 8 eggs were healthy, and they were all graded still pretty low because of the chemo. So I have 5 left, 3 boys and 2 girls. But yeah, it's all in the book. And I actually have my last reconstruction coming up on September 19th. My surgeon is Dr. Valladolid. He actually did my face. So he did a rhinoplasty and under eye blepharoplasty on me a few months ago. He did a phenomenal job. He's an extraordinary surgeon. I would recommend him to anybody. So I'm really looking forward to like the final part of the transformation, and I'm feeling great. I'm cancer free. I'm alive. It's given me a whole new lease on life. I'm grateful to have the life that I have. I'm grateful for all the experiences that I've had, even the negative ones, because they all brought me here. And now I get this opportunity to, build, like chase after my dreams, and I'm just not afraid of anything anymore. Where I think before I wasn't afraid of failure, and I think you saw that in me. I was afraid of success, and now I'm no longer afraid of anything. So I'm just willing to be authentic and put it out there, because I think people need to hear the story and hopefully realize that, if I can get through it, they can get through it too.
The global thing, how does that come up?
The Global Innovation Fellow.
Did you get a letter in the mail? Did somebody call you?
So I applied with, tens of thousands of other people. I was running my own startup. I actually was one of, there was 52 students, I believe, at Draper University. I was the one that got venture capital funds. I had a company called RunSphere. We did virtual reality for K-12 education. So I built a platform on Unity. I used an Xbox controller. At the time, it was the Samsung Gear headset. So you put the phone in, and you actually could walk around with the Microsoft Xbox controller and like walk around the classroom and learn and do all these things. And so I got accepted to the Clinton Global Initiative. I got to go to China as a global innovation fellow and like promote VR, AR technology and expand deal flow between China and America, which was extraordinary for me. The all-white party in Shenzhen was just partying with like the US government officials was just something I'll never forget. And then in Silicon Valley, all the VCs that came and like came to my Airbnb and actually saw the product that I had put together, as this female founder. And I was the only female founder actually in July of 2015 at Upload VR. I took runner-up because Disney Accelerator was funding it and they knew I was an adult film star. So I had to get runner-up because if they gave me the check, then that would look bad on Disney. But everyone knew. So they all came to the after party. They all saw everything. And it was just fascinating. So it's just been a really fun ride. I mean, I've enjoyed being an entrepreneur. It's difficult when you're a female. I think if I did have a penis, I probably would have been a lot further, a lot faster. But I'm still grateful for where I'm at now. And I do see that there's a really bright future ahead for me creatively. And now by putting myself out there like this, I'm going to have hopefully people that are just like-minded individuals that want to create really amazing creative projects hit me up so that we can do that.
You send in the letter, you get a response that says, "Congratulations, you've been accepted, awarded." I don't know the correct way to say that.
Yeah, it was an email actually. I was sitting. I remember where I was. I was in San Mateo, sitting at one of the Draper University desks, and a lot of people that went there, they all applied too, and most didn't get in. At the time I was working with one of my girlfriends, Sophia Collier, and we were, working on VR, AR kind of EDM, cool, futuristic, tech together. And we had both just decided, you know what, we're young, we're females, like what do we have to lose in this situation? We get a no, right? That's the biggest loss is we get a no. That's nothing. So we just applied thinking like, why not? And most people all got denials, and the two of us sat there right next to each other and we opened up and we got this congratulations, like you've been chosen as a global innovation fellow for the US State Department, like get your passport ready, you're flying to China in a few weeks. So it was fast. It was the most extraordinary feeling.
And sex aside in the adult business, did doing all the interviews and all the promo maybe help you when you went into China? You already knew how to deal with it, the media.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be honest. I think when I did adult in the past, a lot of it was exaggerated, or I felt like I was saying what people wanted me to say, like what they wanted to hear. They wanted that fantasy, right? Like I'm sure now people are wanting to hear, oh, I've been sleeping with all these guys and I'm this whole promiscuous person, but like that's not reality. Even on Brazzers site right now, it's like, oh, she slept with thousands of women. Like I have not slept with thousands of women. That is a total lie. Like the industry definitely over exaggerates, in order to create a fantasy. But I do understand that that's a necessary, part of the job. But moving forward, I've really made it a point to not do that, and just tell the truth and be honest and authentic, because those are the fans that I want. And I want people to know who I really am and really learn to love me for, my past, my present, and my future, and want to work with me because they know they can trust me and I've built a positive reputation. And
interviews aside, were your scenes exaggerated, or because most people say adult scenes are exaggerated anyway? It's acting.
I mean, I'm a method actress, so I mean, I'm doing my job, but does that mean I'm not enjoying it? I mean, it really depended on the day, the scene, the director, how long the day was, how long dialogue was, positions, how I was feeling that day. Some days you got to shoot on your period. It's different than when you're not. Like there are so many factors that play into, how that goes. But as far as exaggerating, I think the orgasms on most porn sets, especially when, you're on a set, are can be exaggerated, not always. But it's just one of those things that depends on who you're working with. If you've got someone that's really good at what they're doing and they're a professional and they know how to get you off, then that's great. That's a win. That's a bonus for that day, right? But there's always going to be those times when you have to fake it because you've got to show what you need to do for the scene. And that's a huge part of what I want to educate people on, is that difference between sex, love, and porn. I mean, porn is made for entertainment, right? The exaggeration is there, the fantasy is there. That's what the job is. That's what it entails. So I would expect nothing less from that.
So with the advocacy work and being a mom, do you think this generation of kids, not yours, but just kids, use porn for education on how to have good sex?
I
Is it a
do.
training tool?
I do. I think it is. And I think we have a huge opportunity to change that. And I think a big part of that change is by educating the parents on having those conversations with their children about the difference between sex, love, and porn, because a lot of parents are scared to talk to their kids about sex, or they don't know when it's age appropriate to talk to them about sex, or they're religious. So they don't, their only option to their kids is abstinence, when in those cases, typically those are the children that end up, not being safe, or, end up pregnant or have an STD because they weren't talked to about the actual consequences or just the repercussions and like what could potentially happen. So I am hoping moving forward that I can help become, an advocate for that, because I am putting my kids on my social media. I do have my children's approval. I always ask them before I post something. They know what I do to an age appropriate extent. My daughter, who's going into college, obviously is fully aware of everything and very supportive. Obviously would never do it herself because she'll never have to, but my children are extremely well-rounded individuals, and my daughter has never had sex and never done, drugs and drank and partied and done all that, strictly because I was honest with her about everything and had those tough conversations. And I think, research-wise, I've kind of proven that it works. If you're willing to have the difficult conversations with your kids and you're honest with them, they're going to communicate with you and they're going to be honest with you, and they're not going to just get education from porn. And if they do watch porn, they're going to understand that it's entertainment, right? It's not the way it's supposed to be done. It's not about degrading a woman and this. It's, that there's a difference between making love and pleasure and the back and forth, reciprocity between that love, and then just having sex with someone that maybe there's not feelings involved, but it's consensual adult sex, right? And then there's the entertainment value. And me teaching my kids the difference has made all the difference in their life. And I hope that I can be a catalyst for change in that with a bunch of other families across the world.
Two questions. Feel free not to answer them, but when you decide to have the sex talk with your daughter, or when you decide to mention your past business, how do you even approach that? Do you decide she's at this age now where I have to have the discussion?
So she actually was sent pictures at a earlier age than I would have liked, and came to me with it. It was not how I wanted it to be with the oldest, but she did ask. And so I gave an age appropriate answer at that time. I believe she was in 3rd or 4th grade. So I was not ready to have the full discussion, but I just explained to her that mommy was an adult film star and I made adult movies for adults, consenting adults, and that helped to, pay for our life and our bills. And that was just my job. It was just a job. And she didn't have to worry about me, and then with my 11 and 10-year-old now, they understand what sex is. They understand what sex work is. They understand what destigmatizing sex workers means. They understand what a sexually transmitted disease is. They've done, I teach human anatomy and physiology to them, so they know what body parts are, what their names are, what they do, what the pleasure and erotic zones are. I I've talked to them about masturbation, when the appropriate time is, where the appropriate place is. I've explained to them that if they have any questions, that they can come to me and there will never be any judgment. And they've done that. They've come to me with questions like, my 10-year-old daughter, Mom, why don't I have boobs? You haven't gone through puberty yet. You don't have boobs yet. Also, I ended up getting fake boobs. So you might not get big boobs, and that's okay. You're perfect just the way you are. Like, I just talk to them like I would talk to anybody at that age appropriate level. And kids are so resilient and so much smarter than we give them credit for, and they're capable of learning so much. And by just teaching them that porn is sex, we're basically educating an entire generation, and have for a while, that is the way it is, and that's what's actually going on behind closed doors, is teenagers and young adults are trying to imitate porn as if porn is pleasurable lovemaking or sex, and that's not always the case.
You touch on advocacy, sex, love, and porn. Sex and love, were they what you were talking about before? You just had consensual sex between two adults, or is there a difference to you?
No, I mean, sex obviously can happen between teenagers, and I think that the conversation between that, those parents and those kids, like, it needs to be had. It happens a lot. I think there are also a lot of teenagers and young adults in that, like, 15 to 21-year-old space there's that very blurred line in that. There's also a big educational piece that we need to work on. But sex and love are not the same thing. You can have sex without loving somebody, and you can love somebody and like be married to somebody and not really have sex with them, right? So there's all these different educational components that we can work on and have panels on and bigger discussions on at a later date. But I do think that the overall consensus is that they're kind of all intertwined in thinking that porn is all of the above encompassing, right? That it's not just entertainment. It's like, this is real. This is what I aspire to be. All these guys, ooh, I want to be a porn star. Like, it's some grandiose fantasy. And they don't really see the reality of it, or even think about potential consequences. And not to say anything is bad or good. It's just, I think people should do research, like real scholarly research, and like dive into all the aspects of what they're potentially getting into and doing before they do it. It's better to be proactive than reactive or have to deal with a consequence after the fact.
But someone like yourself, you provide the extremely unique experience of having lived through it.
Yes.
So it's not like you have to tell somebody, well, you need to read this. Like, no, I did this.
Yeah, I was pregnant at 16. I did start the industry at 18. I do know the difference between sex, love, and porn. I am available for anyone that wants me to speak on the subject. I would be more than happy to share my knowledge with schools, parents, panels, pretty conferences, anyone, because I do believe it's a topic that does need to be highly talked about in this day and age.
You know who Tasha Rain is?
I do. Yes, she's educated. I just saw her on she's on Holly Randall's podcast.
You guys should talk. You ladies, I'm sorry.
Yes. I just posted on her Instagram this morning. It's funny that you just said that. I agree. I think her and I would get along extremely well.
And she's been doing a lot of talking in frat houses and stuff. And
that's great.
Perfect. Once again, real quickly, give me a short version, if you can, of how did you get in the business?
Yeah, my first scene was Amateur Allure, Paul Pilcher. He had posted on, I can't even remember what board it was because I was 18. It was so long ago, but it was more like promotional modeling, brand ambassador stuff. And I got there, and it was more just to feel it out kind of situation. And I got there, and honestly, he was a great guy. He was really sweet. It was very professional. Did I know what I was really getting myself into at 18? Your prefrontal cortex isn't even developed until your mid-20s. No, I really didn't know at that time. But I knew I was going to make a few $1,000s that day. I was 18. I had a baby. I was a single parent. I thought, you know what? Let's give it a shot. What's the worst thing that could happen? And that led into me going, to LA and getting signed by an agency, and things kind of took off from
Right.
there. So, yeah.
Prior to doing it, though, had you watched adult material?
A little bit, but not a lot. I was still very sexually inexperienced. I knew at that time that I was bisexual. I did know that because I went to summer camp and had made out with girls already in my teens. I was 16 and my ex-husband at the time was 21. He was my boss. He was the one that I got pregnant by and had all 3 of the first kids with. So, okay.
When you saw the adult material, did the thought ever cross your mind that I can do that?
Yeah, I think I always knew I was capable of anything that I put my mind to, but not in a narcissistic way, just in a if I wanted to do it, I could do it kind of way. And I do feel like I am the kind of person that when I do something, I want to do it to the best of my abilities, and I do want to be the best at it, but not as like a competitive, I want to be better than everybody else, but like I truly want to be my best. And like I'm a perfectionist. So like if I don't feel like I did my very best at something, like I beat myself up for it. So I guess I always just thought like if I'm gonna dance, I want to dance until I drop dead, like until I just can't anymore. If I sing, I'm gonna give it my all. If I act, I'm gonna method act until they tell me that they've got the cut that they need. And with sex, it's a performance, it's an art form. It is about lighting and angles and makeup and words, and there's so much art involved in creating a masterpiece scene. And that's why I love feature films and like the real creatives in the industry so much more than just, not that there isn't a place for the gonzo work, there is a huge market for it, but it's just never been my artistic preference. So
And in terms of adult work, was there a difference between Madison Scott, the character, and you, or is it pretty much the same thing?
I would say Madison Scott was 100% a character. Crystal is not the same. Crystal is my name. I go by Chris to my friends. I'm really kind of a shy person until you get to know me, usually. It takes a minute for me to kind of share my stories and really let it out there unless I know I'm prepared to do an interview or I know what I'm getting myself into. But Madison is definitely a more promiscuous, fun, flirty kind of character that I've created as a method actress. And I continue, I'm evolving Madison into kind of a new, more intelligent Madison, but are Chris and Madison the same person? No, they're not.
And you grew up in Arizona, correct?
I did, yeah.
Did you go to public school, private school?
I went to public school all the way through.
In grade school, do you have a favorite subject?
All of them. I was extremely gifted to the point where I was pulled out and was great, like working grade levels ahead and like bused to the higher schools to do more honors and AP and gifted work. So always was obsessed with outer space and science. And my son now is top 1% gifted in spatial and science, and he wants to become an aeronautical engineer. So he got that. My oldest daughter got the music creative side of me. The other daughter got, they each got a piece of me. So it's really fascinating.
In grade school, or when you were young at that point, you like, you have any idea what you want to do with your life at that point?
Yeah. So there were 3 things throughout school that I wanted to be: an astronaut, a surgeon, and a singer. Those were the 3 things that in grade school, middle school, and high school I had as job options.
In high school, you were a popular girl? Were you a loner, a geek, a nerd?
I was a high school cheerleader. I was the flyer. I wouldn't say I was the most popular girl in school, but I wasn't like on the other side either. I was sort of somewhere in the middle. Um, I was the only girl on the team without a mom. And that was, I think, what really affected my time as a cheerleader was they all had like tea time with moms and like shopping with moms and like all of these experiences, right, in cheer with their moms, where their moms would show up. And my mom and dad divorced when I was 5, and my mom wasn't a part of my life. So I was the only girl on the team without a mom. And that it did really mentally affect me. And that is in the book because I loved cheer. I was really good at cheer. I actually became a national UCA all-star cheerleader in 2002 in high school at UC Santa Barbara. And I just loved it. And I do feel like if I would have had a mom, I probably would have continued on with it. So freshman year, I did it in high school. And then sophomore year, I kind of went goth, emo, dyed my blonde hair black, and switched schools because I didn't try out for cheer. And I was really just beating myself up about it. And got kicked out of my house. My dad had married a new person, and we didn't get along. And I got home one day from school, and she had changed the lock. So I pretty much was on my own. I ended up in a state group home, and I was the only person in the group home allowed to leave to go to school because I always prioritized my education. I always advocated for myself. I graduated high school early on time with a child. Yeah, so I made it work. It wasn't an easy life, but I now own a beautiful home and have amazing kids and drive good cars and have great degrees and have lived a long, full life. And it shows that when you have, where there's a will, there's a way. Like when you're motivated enough and you keep pursuing and, wanting, you see the goal in front of you and you keep working towards it, that anything really is possible.
I'm sorry to hear about your parenting divorcing and stuff. Did that affect you when you got pregnant the first time? Did you make the determination at that point that I'm going to be?
Yeah, it did affect me because I was not living at home. I actually had just gotten out of the group home shelter at 16, and I was staying with my aunt and uncle. I was working at Pacific Sunwear at Chandler Mall, and the guy, his name was Bryce. He was 21 and I was 16, and he'd tell me to put the ladder up and look up my skirt, but he was dating someone his own age. And then it was February, like Valentine's Day 2005. I was 16, and he brought me I love you balloons to the apartment I was staying at the time, kind of living on my own in my aunt and uncle's house, but still, I had a little van. I was going to school. I was actually dual enrolled, so I was going to community college, high school, working 3 jobs. I was living as an adult at that very young age. And so a week later, so February 21st, was the first time I had sex with him. And then our daughter Cadence was born November 16th of that year, 2005. So it happened very fast. And I just had to grow up. It forced me to make a decision. And a lot of people were pressuring me, obviously, at that time to have an abortion. And it was never an option for me. Like, I fully support pro-choice, but for me, it wasn't a choice I was willing to personally make. And I just knew in my heart that I was willing to go through whatever the future would hold and whatever sacrifices I would have to make to raise her and love her and, be the best mom that I could be.
I mean, this whole thing is so inspiring. It's stupid, but my thing was when she's born, you make a conscious effort of, I didn't have a mom. I'm going to make sure I'm always there, and I'm always. Was that something right away? Was it something that kind of developed over time?
It both. I mean, I think I always knew that I wanted to be, a great, exceptional mom because I didn't have a mom growing up at all. I didn't have my biological mom or my stepmom, and both of my mom and my stepmom were inpatient psych for suicidal attempts at the same exact time, actually, when I was younger. So for me, I definitely wanted to be the opposite of them. I was striving so hard to just want to give them a good life. But there was a time where I felt pretty overwhelmed as a single parent of 3 because I didn't have a mom and I didn't really know how to be a mom. You kind of have to figure it out on your own along the way, right? There's no manual to this. And I do think the industry played a part in the negativity that kind of seeped into my head, because I felt like a good mom until there were people in the industry that were like, you can't be a porn star and a good mom. Like, your kids should get taken away from you and all of those kind of things. And that did start to seep into my mind. And that was difficult. But getting off of social media for 8 years really was so good for my mental health, because it allowed me to raise my kids away from the spotlight and really see that I was an exceptional mom the entire time. And I never should have even thought those things. And the sacrifices that I made for my kids were well worth it. And they know it was well worth it. And they tell me every day how much they love me and how grateful they are for their life. And the, things that we have, not that material things even matter, because we can't take them with us when we die, but I am very grateful for what I've earned and attained at this point in my life. I look back and I don't know anyone else that has shared the same exact story as me. I don't think any of us ever have the exact same story, but it is nice to see that there are people that are finally recognizing just the sheer amount of hard work that I put in, because it was extremely hard work. Like, between the adult industry, between school, between breast cancer, between not having a family, like all of it. My ex-husband actually tried to kill the kids and I. That was tough. He lost all of his parental rights. It's been a hard road, and I survived and I made it. And now I have an opportunity to go even further than I ever thought possible. And I'm really, really excited about like what that potential future looks like.
Quickly, were you bullied in high school? You mentioned you're not so popular, but
I don't think I was really bullied in high school. I was pretty well liked, and I was always a very compassionate, empathetic, humble person. I was a member, an ally and in a lot of clubs. Like, I was in National Honor Society and National Spanish Honor Society, and was very well liked by my teachers. I actually am still like very good friends with all of my teachers from junior high and high school. We're all still Facebook friends. I actually built I did a documentary on the Apollo space missions when I was in 7th grade, and it won at the school, the state, and the regional level. And I actually went to Washington, D.C. at like 12, 13 years old with my National Junior Honor Society teacher and my social studies teacher, who were married. And I babysat their infant, who's now going to grad school, and their youngest son is going to college with my oldest daughter this year. And they're probably going to be in school plays together at their university. So it's just fascinating. I've maintained relationships. I mean, my teachers were my parents. My teachers were the people that I looked up to. They were my mentors. They were my friends. And now I can say they're exceptionally best friends. And many of them keep in contact with me all the time and ask how I'm doing. And, we visit. And I'm really looking forward to seeing my social studies teacher and my National Junior Honor Society teacher here soon, as we take our kids up to university in a week. So,
between the first time you had a child and had sex and had a child, were you sexually active at all in between that and the adult business? It was always just like one boy and then kids and then porn?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I was sexually assaulted as a child, quite a few times throughout my childhood. And it did take a profound effect on me. That is in the autobiography. My mom and dad split when I was 5. My mom was a crystal meth head. My name is Crystal, so you can do the math on that. She likes to say that's not why she named me that it was because I was a gem, but she's still doing it to this day and lives in a trailer park in Kingman. So you can the logic stuck there. And she had 2 kids after me, and I felt like I sort of had to kind of help raise my brother and sister, because my dad started an insurance company, and he basically he got married to his career for a really long time. And so we ended up with a nanny that had 2 boys that, kind of molested my sister and I, and nobody really cared. And then throughout my life, there were just multiple times that people would take advantage, and it just felt like nobody really gave a shit. So I did kind of always feel like my body was meant to be used, and it was just an object, and I didn't really have autonomy over it. from the beginning, basically. So coming back now with all of this wisdom, knowing that I have a choice in everything that I do, it's a massive change and shift in mentality, because even when I was in the industry before, I mean, an agent would give me a scene and I'd be like, okay, like this is my job for the day. This is what I'm going to do to make money. And now I'm like, if I don't want to do something, I'm just not going to do it. It's just as simple as that. But when you're brought up a certain way to think that you're objectified so much that it becomes natural, and you're abused so much that it becomes a part of you, you don't know any better until you know better. So,
but the thing that I was thinking about, and you kind of just answered, was when you start doing adult scenes, do you know what a blowjob is? Do you know what anal sex is? Do you know? Is it just kind of like?
So my first major girl sex scene was with Sophia something. I can't remember her last
Sophia
name.
Lynn?
I actually don't. I legitimately don't remember. It was for like I Love You Madison.com. Easton was the director. And it was a girl anal scene. And I also worked with like Melanie. And I remember like bits and pieces of it.
Right.
It was all shot in Scottsdale. I was 18. It was before my boob job. But I had made out with girls. I knew I was attracted to girls. I was always attracted to my female teachers from time I was probably in like first, second grade. So that wasn't shocking to me, but the actual act, like my very first girl scene, was an anal scene. And nobody had taught me like how to prepare, or like,
right.
You don't know anything. And so I was really, really lucky that I got girls that were kind of a little more veteran, and they were able to kind of help show me the ropes a little bit. And then I, in turn, was able to return the favor to many girls over the years. But as far as boy-girl scenes, because of that short-term relationship with my daughter's father, like I did know what a lot of it was, and I knew how to do it. So it was pretty natural for me. But even from the beginning, I always looked at it as a job. Like I never looked at it as like, oh, this sucks or anything. Like I was always just very financially driven. That's what drove me. Was I got high off the money, not off the scene or the fame. So for me, it was like, what do you got today? Like, what can I do? What can I pay for? What do I need to take care of? I have a daughter. Like, I didn't want to live off government assistance. So for me, I watched a lot of my other girlfriends that had that were teen moms, and they really struggled, but they also had family members to support them, and I didn't. So I just made the decision to do it myself. And I think Taylor Swift's song, You're on Your Own, Kid, really applies to my life. And I was lucky enough to go to her first 2 shows here in Arizona with my daughter, and it was just fabulous. So it's been a great year.
And when you blew up in porn, did you think it was because you were the stunning, cute little blonde that was doing dirty things, or did you have any idea what that was?
I honestly didn't know or care really much at the time. I just was doing a job. I was simply just doing a job. And the fact that people took that so well, to this day, still blows my mind. I think at the time I was doing interviews, I had a little bit of an ego because people were filling my head with that ego. But now that I've almost died, I have like this whole new lease on life, and I'm just so much more humble. And I truly believe humility is one of the sexiest things you can have beyond intelligence. And so I look back and I'm just grateful for the fans that I do have and that have stuck by me and are retweeting stuff, knowing that I'm coming back, and just the sweet comments that I'm getting. I didn't know what to expect, but I wasn't expecting it to be so fast and so kind and so amazing. Like I really, the industry always does kind of get a bad rap, it feels like. And I don't feel like that's happening to me at all. I feel like there's a tide turning. And I think between Barbie and Taylor Swift and women taking over, like this is almost the perfect time for me to come back and be able to do adult and mainstream and any creative project that I want to do and own my IP. And I think people are hopefully going to stand behind that. So
Hopefully more than you know, but that's another discussion. When you come back, was there any first couple of things you saw that surprised you, like how much the business had changed in 8 years?
Um, I'm actually grateful because like back in the day, I did 14-day testing, and now that's the norm is 14-day testing. Back then it was 30 days. And I always thought that was crazy personally because you could catch anything in that 30-day time span, but you're a lot less likely in a 1 to 2 week. And I was always I want an immediate test kind of girl. Like my health was always important to me because I was a mom. So I'm grateful that that COVID kind of caused testing to be, more, faster, and like you have to have a current brand new test to shoot. And I think that's really vital. So I'm grateful for that. I don't know as far as some of the like financials and like what girls and guys are making these days. Like I honestly don't know. And I honestly really don't care because my value is what I get to pick what I accept and won't accept. So if people are coming to me with what other girls are accepting, saying, oh, you're a bitch for not accepting this, like, no, this is my right as a human being to say, no, I don't want to do this. Like, I'm not willing to take that rate. So I don't know what the current rates are. I know that times have changed. I have talked to some of the agents. I have not signed with an agent because I plan on signing with a mainstream agent, not an adult agent, most likely. I am looking at literary agents. I have a few in mind. I did sign with Brian Gross for PR. He's been wonderful. He actually went to the same university that my daughter's going to on the same vocal performance scholarship that my daughter has. We both have a lot in common with Star Wars and tech and psychedelics, and it just was a really perfect fit for me, PR wise. So
when you were in, I think the lifespan cycle, I don't know the correct way to say it. Anyway, it was roughly a year and a half. Now it's like 2 months.
Really?
Girls are doing double anal the first week in the business now.
Wow.
Seeing
that is like really genuinely shocking to me. I do think there needs to be more education then around, like, to the women themselves about just their self-confidence and their value, because rates are only going to go up if every woman demands it. But also, I mean, I understand, time shifts and inflation. Like I get the whole economy part of it, but women also need to really truly learn to value themselves. If they want that longevity in the business, you have to have self-confidence. You have to turn down stuff that you don't want to do. And I'm guessing the majority of the women that are doing that are doing it because they need the money. And I'm in a grateful position where my degrees gave me a corporate job that gave me a 401k that helped me buy a house and nice cars, and had my savings account enough to where I have plenty of time to spare to wait for the right amount to come in. So I think a lot of it is they probably need the money, and they're doing it because they need that quick cash, and that makes me really sad.
The people today are told, well, if you don't do double anal the first week in the business or the second week in the business, well, you're not going to become popular. And if you don't become popular, well, then girls want to be influencers now, which, like, I can respect that, but do you know what an influencer is? Like, you have any idea? And they don't, and
you have to be an expert in a field, whether that's fitness, whether that's lifestyle. For me, I'm an expert in user experience. That's what my master's degree is in. I also can talk law. I can talk politics. I can talk government relations. I mean, I can talk tech, generative AI, VR, AR. I can talk LiDAR technology. I mean, you name it, I can talk about it. But it took a long time to learn all of those skills. And a lot of these girls, they don't have the education or the wisdom to be able to become an influencer because they're not an expert in any of those fields. I ended at $5,000 for a boy-girl scene, which at the time back then was a lot.
Right.
And I knew that I was one of the top paid girls, and I only had to work 2 days a month. So I made 10 grand a month. I worked 2 days, shot 2 boy-girl scenes, and I had the rest of the time to just spend with my kids. That at the time, that was good enough for me. Now I just made $10,000 a month at my corporate job. So for me, this is a long-term play of subscription models and
My-
creative pursuits and brand partnerships.
My point being is, if you made $500 at the end of the day, was that worth your time of being on set for 18 hours? And like, it's just crazy.
And
Now-
potentially doing something you really didn't want to be doing in the first place. Yeah, back then it was still like, it was right at the end of like the Club Jenna days. Like,
Yeah.
it was, digital playground contract stars were the big thing. Brazzers contract stars became big. Madison Ivy was number one. I became the second ever Brazzers contract female star.
Right.
I worked my own contract. I didn't do it with an agent. I actually helped Shauna get the third Brazzers female contract. So yeah, times have definitely changed, because back then it was really about, you earned that spot to become a contract star. You worked your butt off, literally and figuratively. I mean, you earned it. You had to build a reputation. And yeah, it does seem like in this day and age, it's all about this just quick, immediate gratification and like turn, you know what I mean? Turn and flip.
Yeah.
And I do see that kind of on TikTok. My kids are on it. I've just started a TikTok. I haven't even posted on it yet, but my 17, almost 18-year-old is trying to teach me how to do all the editing and get on it and all the new social media, since I've been off for so long. And it seems like it's just like everything is like, you've got 20, 30 seconds and it's just a quick scroll now. So
anyway, the creatively, very quickly, when you do your OnlyFans stuff, are you looking at that being like digital playground Brazzers ridiculously beautiful? Or is it more like, I don't want to say gonzo?
Yeah, I'm doing both. So I love the ethereal, like high-end professional look. Like that's my own artistic style. Like but I get into moods where like I'll want to do certain like dark stuff or like change the lighting and do some really cool script. Like I just am one of those creatives where my mood, I'll have just a random idea in the middle of the night and I'll get into my phone and speak it, or I'll write something down. And so I actually have like a bunch of full scripts with like who I want to work with, what I want to do, what their rates are. Like I'm kind of ready to go. And I have probably 100 photo sets and scenes ready for OnlyFans already. And I'm just kind of shooting stuff within my house and like lifestyle stuff right now. And then I'm actually going to film the surgery on September 19th. I don't know how much of it we're going to get to film. It's going to depend on the doctor and the day and like how, the surgery center and everything. But I actually vlogged my rhinoplasty and my under eye blepharoplasty. So like, I'm really trying to be honest, because there's so many models that are like, oh, I'm so natural, I've never had anything done. Like I have 4 kids. I needed it. I needed a little pick me up, to come back. Like I knew I had a little bit of, it wasn't bad, but like from 18 to 35, like underneath my eyes got a little bit hollow. And my nose was a little bit wider than I would have wanted coming back, because I do want to do a lot of mainstream and transition into mainstream. So I wanted to have the best look that I could and feel, the most confident that I could feel. And I do. We did a fabulous
job. Very quickly, do you think when you were in the business before that mainstream people have changed their perspective on people coming in to mainstream from adult now? Or do you think it's...
Back in the day when I would party with all the mainstream people, they were fascinated by me and I was fascinated by them, but they were just as fascinated by me as I was of them, like back in the day. So I don't know how that's going to be. I mean, I think it's different when you're in a personal party setting with them and they're just like coming up to you with questions and like they're really fascinated by you, versus the public perception they're willing to put out with you, right? Like behind the scenes, they're willing to be my best friend, but their PR person might be like, we can't really, publicly associate with this person. Do I think the tides are turning in that? 100%. I think there are a lot of A-list actors that have, adult movies that have been hidden. You look at Kim Kardashian, you look at Paris Hilton, you look at everyone else, they've been able to, maintain their notoriety despite having sex scenes that are out there. And I don't see why I should be any different. I'm, gorgeous, intelligent, a mom. I'm capable of anything that I put my mind to. I'm creative, I'm entrepreneurial. And if I want to do something in the mainstream world or lifestyle or makeup or whatever it is in my future that I want to do, like, I just don't see there being any barrier. And the people that put barriers in my way, that's just not the door for me. There's going to be someone else that will open a door, or that will be the right fit, or a better collaboration. And I think my reputation and my loyalty and my humility is going to speak for itself. I think just my past alone has already shown that. But I think moving forward, it's also going to continue to show that they can trust me. And I'm also doing the work to take the acting intensive courses and really prove myself to the producers and directors, to have that reel, to really, the dream would be to have like a Jennifer Garner Alias role, right? Like a series where I could actually, because I do my own stunts, I speak multiple languages, I still, tumble, and it would be really fun and fascinating for me, I think, to actually be able to take on a character like that. So we'll see.
With all the different platforms in today's world, I guess, you're giving a thought to even doing that stuff yourself, like producing a whole series mainstream, then there's an adult version here and this there and that there and
yeah,
so forth.
So I just registered riseandShineStudios.com. So I have my own production studio now. That is the plan. First and foremost, there's just only so much time in a day. So right now I'm just like, this is my first week. So I'm just starting slow and getting back on social media, learning the platforms, having my kids help me learn how to edit for the platforms. My master's is in user experience. So I'm well aware of how to do research and understand like the UX. And I built my own website. So like the MadisonScott.com, I built that all on my own. I'm editing it all on my own. There's no one helping me at all do any of this. I have nobody other than a PR person. It's just all me, real me. So I think that's the difference, I think, between me and a lot of the girls, is a lot of them, it seems like, have agencies, even running their OnlyFans, like they've got bots and, agencies overseas that are just kind of spitting out stuff to people. And I'm actually personally interacting with each and every fan. So that's not something that I'm ever going to stop. I think it's really important. It's something that Taylor Swift actually has really taught me. Being a Swiftie is the one thing that, will keep you alive, is the love of your fans and the love of your job. And I really am grateful for the opportunity to have this job and to be in this position. And I'll never, ever throw adult under the bus, because it gave me a platform that is so large that will be able to allow me to do anything that I want in the world. And for that, all I can say is thank you to my fans.
Your book, do you already have a publisher? Is there a date to their?
So it's being edited right now. We've got a couple of publishers. I'm really hoping for Simon and Schuster. They're like the ultimate one of their subs. So I'm in contact with a couple of different people and a lot of authors that have been published with them, but I haven't decided or signed a contract with anyone yet. So if there is a literary agent or a publisher that's listening that's interested, I'm still taking offers.
And one last time of kissing your butt, in your whole crazy, amazing, insane story, is there one part of it that genuinely surprises you? Like you survived it, became a better person because of it? I don't know.
When I was about 20 years old, I tried to commit suicide, and I would have succeeded had my next door neighbor not called 911. I was legally pronounced dead for 5 minutes at Chandler Regional Hospital. I took 52 pills and they had to paddle me. They'd given up on me. I have no idea how I came back, why I came back, other than there must have been a reason for me to be here. I was escorting. I was young. I was in the industry. I was stiffed $70,000. It was a really tough, dark period of my life. I would say that's one. And then the other one was I was escorting in Chicago. It was towards the end. And I was almost killed. I woke up the next morning and I was lucky to be alive. And it was a pretty horrific experience that I survived. So I would say those are two things that definitely hardened me, but they also showed me just how tough I am. And that was one thing my dad did do, even though we don't have a relationship, is he really did show me how tough I am and that I'm capable of doing anything on my own. So.
Your socials are your Twitter and Instagram?
Yeah, my Twitter is XO Madison Scott, and everything else is the Madison Scott.
Anything you want to say to all of your fans?
Just thank you. Thank you for watching me all these years, growing up with me on camera since I was 18 years old. The good, the bad, the ugly, the without the implants, the whole process. Thank you for sticking by me. I hope you'll continue to follow my journey moving forward. I'm really looking forward to hearing from you the kind of content that you want to see, and hope that you will be respectful and kind to me as I post, content of me, my family, my children, and just let me know kind of what you want to see, and hopefully what I provide will continue to give you the entertainment and the joy that you deserve. And I hope that you all are doing well and survived the pandemic and all the craziness that has happened over the past few years. And I love you. So thank you so much for this opportunity to continue to grow my career.